school board. Yeah, so hopefully that was inspirational to parents to join the school board, and at the same time support understanding the the main topic we had about the systems, policies, and processes. Yeah.
Thank you. And now give it to Chacha for the discussion on school reports and parent teachers interviews.
Share. Okay, so welcome everyone. Ang topic for today is assessments, markings, report. So marami kasing parents nagtanong, ano bang kung walang periodical exams, paano ba malalaman where my child is at? So I think valid reason yun kasi we do it a bit different here. Anong kailangan matutunan each year? Tapos, so what I'll do is I'll give you a sample of how the tests look like and paano ba nire-report sa parents yun. And ano ba yung mga, what can you ask when you have parent-teacher conferences? So what we'll do, we'll begin with Mai to talk about how it's done in the early childhood sector.
Cool. Alrighty. Yeah, so ECE, so Lorena and Cecil, do you have early childhood age children?
Mine is year 8.
Oh, year 8. Okay, yeah. What about Lorena? May ano ba sa early childhood?
Anong year ba yun, mga anak ni Sis? Pero meron yun siya.
Meron. Okay. Anyway, so sometimes because lalo na sa early childhood, there is no exam, children don't bring anything written and all that. Is there an assessment going on? Actually, there is. And usually the report comes through the learning story kasi narrative ang style ng assessment for children. And as I've mentioned last time, the curriculum of early childhood is called Tefariki. And next slide, Ja. Yeah. So this is it's just like the rubric of what are the learning goals for children and what are the learning outcomes that we want children to actually achieve in early childhood. And there are 20 learning outcomes. And those are actually under the different strands of well-being, belonging, contribution, communication, and exploration. And as I've mentioned before, it's all about dispositions as well, which links in with what Jaja is going to talk about, key competencies later on, because those dispositions is about responsibility for children, independence, learning to talk, learning to communicate their feelings and their ideas. So there are 5 of those goals, and I have just taken out 2 para makita natin kung ano yung mga learning goals at saka ano ba yung mga learning outcomes that we want from children to achieve while they are in early childhood. So I've just picked out 2 of those strands. Sa next slide. And if you're going to look at the bottom of the slide, actually nakalagay dyan pathways to schools and Kura. It shows the link between early childhood and primary school. So what are those different links that we want the connections to happen para madali for primary school, for children to adjust as well in primary school. So sa next slide. Yeah, so I have just taken out yung well-being of children because that's the primary strand that we work with children when they come to early childhood. So the goals are, on the left-hand side, you can see the goals. So their health is promoted, their emotional well-being is nurtured, they are kept safe from harm, and the learning outcomes. And this should be the ones that are exhibited by children, so they know how to keep themselves healthy and care for themselves, and then managing themselves and expressing their feelings and needs, and keeping themselves and others safe from harm. So those are under well-being. And then communication. So it's all about the nonverbal and verbal communication. At the bottom, sometimes you see, do they learn about maths and language and all that? So if you're going to look at the third goal, there's they experience the stories and symbols of their own and other cultures. And yung learning outcomes is enjoying hearing stories and retelling and creating them. Meron yung recognizing print symbols and concepts. So it all comes in the program as well. And then recognizing mathematical symbols and concepts and using them with enjoyment, meaning and purpose. So these are the things that teachers support children with, and they follow the child. So based on the interest of the children, so very individual ang assessment ng mga bata when they are in early childhood. When it comes to ano ba yung interest nila, nasaan sila at this stage? Is it more about physical development that they need support with, or is it the emotional and social? So magkakaiba ang itsura. So very individualized yung learning story. And for those who have children in early childhood, you may have noticed that they talk specifically about children's interests, what they are doing in the environment. And then they actually ask parents as well to give feedback on how does this relate sa bahay. And this is where the collaboration comes in, because for example with behavior, sometimes parents would say, oh, yung anak ko lagi na lang nag-iisang maglaro, wala siyang kalaro. So one way of supporting your child with that is talking to the teacher so that you can look at strategies. And then that will come in their learning stories as well. Kung ano yung strategies na ginawa nyo sa bahay, what are the teachers doing in school, and how are they related? Because that's where you really want the collaboration to come in. Because again, as I've mentioned, it's the disposition of being responsible, of being able to express themselves are some of the main things that we want to develop in early childhood. So at the next slide, there is a sample. It's an exemplar from the Ministry of Education on how a learning story would look like. Different schools, different early childhood settings do it differently. Ang platform na ginagamit karamihan use Educa or Storypark. So it's just like parang Facebook naglalagay ng story, but then it's limited to families, and parents can invite other family members to see the stories. And there is an opportunity for parents actually to give feedback on the story itself. So parang may chat box doon where you could actually say, this is something that I have noticed at home. I have noticed that my child is also interested in numbers, for example. So this is something that we're working at home. How can we extend that at school, for example? Or you can say, my child is finding it difficult to express himself. How can we support him at home? Parang may mga ganun. So the discussion comes in there. So on the slide, so the one in the second column, those are the main dispositions that we want to develop in preschool, in early childhood setting. It's taking an interest, being involved in their own learning, persisting with difficulty, and then expressing their ideas or feelings, and then taking responsibility. But then that comes in different ways as well. So learning story, these ones, you cannot see yung nasa second column na naka-bullet point yan sa learning story. Sometimes it's incorporate, depende na rin kung paano magsulat ang teacher. So it comes in different forms, depende sa style ng teacher. But usually it's weaved in. It's weaved in the story. Kung ano yung, what are they trying to develop? What is your child's current interest? How is that being supported at preschool? And there's always, that's what's next. Where are we going to bring your child next in terms of developing this disposition? Yeah, so yeah, that's how it's done in early childhood. Cool.
All right.
Yeah, that's me.
Meron po bang mga tanong? Anyway, so very connected yung ginagawa sa early childhood.
By the way, just to correct myself, ang mga anak pala nila Sis and Alden ay nasa mga age 7 to 10, nasa primary.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
So okay yun kasi okay to know what they do in the early childhood para malaman namin how do you track progress from their preschool to the primary. So one thing that we do, especially yung mga junior teachers or new entrant teachers, is they always observe or meet the preschool teacher. So nung before COVID, I would go to the preschool, local preschool where my kids come from, so that I can observe how they work in that environment. And that will give me sort of like yung pre-assessment before they even enroll in my class. So lahat ng new entrant teachers, they always have that meeting with their preschool teacher. And in every transition, let's say year 6 to the intermediate, may meeting din yan with intermediate teachers. And from year 8 to college, usually college very busy. Pero we send mga parang ganyan, mga learning stories to talk about what the needs are, the strengths, and any concerns that they need to look out for. So I made this parang flow chart. Well, actually, it's not a flow chart, cycle, the diagram, to show how do we actually, before we report to parents, what actually happens in the classroom. So, unlike the Philippines, meron tayong every term or every semester na periodical exams. Here, sa New Zealand, you have the standardized assessment. And I'll show you samples of that later on. So, this is a standardized assessment. It's at the start of the year. So, it's basically to show where the child is at, what they need to learn, and what you need to teach. And from there, the teachers start planning and setting goals with every child. And sometimes may beginning of the year parent-teacher student conference where you share the goals for that semester or term. And then you have the teaching and learning, and then feedback is given in every step of the way. And then what's very, very important, even if we don't have those periodical exams, we always have the what you call formative assessment. And I'll explain that later on. It's just a fancy term of looking at what the child can do on a daily basis. From that formative assessment, again, you plan and set goals along the way, because let's say yung goal niya nung first term na achieve na niya kaagad, then you change mo yan based on what they're working on. And then yung teaching moderation, whenever we have these standardized assessments or yung mga, kasi like yung mga writing assessment, which I will explain later on, medyo may pagka-objective din, may pagka-subjective din siya eh. So to eliminate that subjectivity, the teachers meet and compare how we assess. Let's say yung teacher na room 9, teacher na room 8, and all the team of teachers, we take all the, let's say, writing samples that we have already assessed, and then we compare whether how close we are in terms of our assessment to really check that we're doing it objectively based on the curriculum. And then before we report, so we come up with a curriculum judgment. Usually they call it the OTJ, which is short for overall teacher judgment, because we're looking at all the aspects of the child's learning in order to come up with a curriculum judgment. Because pwedeng na-ace niya exam, and yet the attitude doesn't show that. And so it's so important to look at all the factors affecting the learning. So ano ba yung ina-assess and how is this determined? So we've got here on the left side, lahat ng orange, that's just the hard skills. So kumbaga sa work, yan yung hard skills. What is being assessed? What subject areas? Reading and writing and math. Because yun yung 3 most important skills for us to be literate, enumerate, and to survive in society. Now, all the other subject areas, let's say you've got a passion in science or history or social sciences, just because it's not assessed or reported to parents, it doesn't mean that they're not learning it. So all of those are integrated. So let's say lesson is history, but then you're going to write about it anyway. So that's going to be assessed as writing, as part of your writing subject. And then your reading encompasses from year 4 onwards, which is senior year, reading is not just learning how to read anymore. It encompasses all of the curriculum areas. So it's across the curriculum. And then dito sa left side, sa right side, yung red, that's all, yan yung key competencies. Because we want a well-rounded child. We don't want a child na genius sa math, pero hindi naman marunong to work with other people. So these are the key competencies. You're assessing how creative think, how they think, whether they think about what they need to do, how well they plan, relating to others, so basically behavior, and then using language symbols in text. Yung language symbols in text, usually incorporated yan sa reading, writing, and numeracy in the primary school. Self-management and responsibility, so malaking factor yan. How does the child show initiative? How are they able to manage their moods? And then yung sinasabi ni Mai, yung involvement, being involved, that's participating and contributing. So basically, yung learning dispositions ng preschool or ng ECE, yan yung tinatawag na key competencies ng primary and intermediate. Ang college ba, key competencies pa rin yung sinusunod? Sino ba ang may mga college na anak? Joey?
Sa NELPS, yung National Education Learning, yeah, it's almost the same. Yun din yung kanyang driver. It's actually developing all those skills as well. So very different. May additional sa high school, sa university. Yeah.
Expected of them eh. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. What are the different types of assessment? So yung periodical exams na alam natin, ang closest to that is the standardized assessment. And I will show you samples of this. So yung mga nag-attend lang na session ngayon makakakita because hindi ko pwede to i-share. I'm the only one who has access to it. So I'll show you what the tests look like kung curious kayo and how that's being reported to parents. So all primary schools, intermediate schools use these standardized assessments that I'm going to share. So the standard is compared to other New Zealand students per year level or age. And then the test questions match the New Zealand curriculum. So this is a diagnostic test administered at the beginning of the year to see where's the child at, ano bang natutunan niya from last year, what am I going to teach? So it mainly informs the teacher how to run their program. Now, this is not the only test we use. It's never used on its own. So it's used with other assessment information. What's their work on a daily basis? It's used with formative assessment and their attitude also and their dispositions towards that subject. So usually online ang format kasi mas matipid sa papel. But we modify. So for example, yung math test namin, our school has a policy, we read the math test to the students. We're not going to expect them to read it on their own because we are assessing math skills, not reading skills. Kung dyslexic ka, mababagsak mo yung math mo because nahirapan ka sa pagbabasa. So usually online. And it's given to year, usually seniors, pero yung year 3 sometimes are given the math test and the listening test. And then ito pala link, more parent information about the PAT test, which is used by all schools. You can click that once we've shared the slides with you. Okay. So, after ng standardized assessment, I mentioned formative assessment. And this is the most important type of assessment because you're actually assessing how they're working in the classroom, what they are doing on a daily basis. So kung yung standardized test is a quantitative measure of what the child can do, this is more qualitative. And because you're using observations as well as yung product, yung work mismo ng bata, then it gives you a better picture of how they're working. Because pwedeng mataas sila sa standardized test. Pero 30 minutes before they decided to do their writing, yung ganon, because let's say ayaw nila or may attitude. So you can see all of that. You're able to observe that and the teacher records all of that. So it includes the attitudes. It also includes learning conversations because pwedeng hindi sobrang talino yung bata, pero kita mo yung persistence, and then the questions that they ask, let's say math problem, or the way that all the different strategies that they use to come up with an answer. That's very, very important, because in the end, in the future, it doesn't much matter what you are teaching them, but how they arrive at the answer, or what they're doing to solve a problem, is what's more important, because knowledge will always change. In the next 10 years, obsolete na yung tinuturo mo sa school. And that's why all these skills, the soft skills, kumbaga, is how you arrive at an answer, or how you're going to tackle this problem. That's what's more important. And usually, that's not seen or measured when you do standardized tests, but it's seen in, let's say, group work. You're able to assess how they work within the classroom. So it includes peer assessment, kasi the more that the child is able to evaluate their own work, and not just against the teacher, but against other peers or students their own age, that shows better understanding of the topic or the process or what you're trying to teach. And because the assessment happens on a regular basis within the classroom, then it gives you feedback kung ano bang pwede kong ituro, and then you're able to share that feedback to the child. So ito sample ng tong picture na to, sample ng, so sa Tawa School, and other schools are probably online na, we use the platform, the app called Seesaw. So parang story park yan. And it parang Facebook basically. So, and then may mga tags sa ilalim, like this is a writing work, math work, reporting. So ang reporting sa Tawa School is all online now, because it's real time. Yung kunyari ngayon, yung lesson mo ngayon, tas yung writing, yung follow-up work ng bata, kukunan mo lang ng picture. O, the next week, makikita mo yung progress. So, real time yung report and hindi siya kailangan formal, kasi ang hirap nung dating reporting at the end of, middle of the year and end of the year. So, you get 2 reports, what your schools are required to send out 2 reports a year. Usually middle, and usually end, to track the progress, middle and end. If you have apps like this, every week, makikita mo kung ano yung ginagawa ng bata. So parang, it's not gonna be a surprise if the child is struggling, because makikita mo na kung ano nangyayari every week, and may comment from the teacher that we are still working on the E sound or whatever it is. We're still working on, and then may mga comment, this is how you can help at home. Whereas in the past, yung goal, ang pangit ng reporting, kasi at the end of 2 terms mo na i-report, and minsan yung goals na sinet mo beginning of the year, na-achieve na niya, obsolete na yung and then hindi yung nakikita yung work. So parang puro paragraph lang, and then it's not as meaningful as the way it's done now. So if yung school nyo, primary school or intermediate school, is still not using an app, parang dinosaur na yan, maghanap kayo na ibang school. Because this is real time, there's evidence, it's evidence shown, and you can track progress along the way. You don't need to wait for the middle of the year or the end of the year to get the report. So what happens next after formative assessment? Yung key competencies that's also being assessed. Pero yung assessment is more informal. So at the end, so when you get the report middle of the year and at the end of the year, you would get a comment about reading, there's a comment about writing, a comment about math, and there will be a comment about key competencies. So itong rubric na to, so why is it important to assess key competencies? Kasi, well, it also improves the way you teach and learn. Na sa Pilipinas, kung naaalala nyo, most of our exams, puro multiple choice. So parang may isang sagot. It doesn't teach diversity of thinking. It doesn't teach creativity. Parang memorizing mo yung answers na yan. Is that a good measure of how well you will perform 10 years from now? Makakakuha ka ba maayos sa trabaho dahil na-ace mo yung exam? So no. That's why it's changing. If you're looking at key competencies, it also changes the way the teachers think about how they teach. And in the end, it improves education. And you also want to know yung importante yung metacognition. So yung knowing what to know or knowing what I know or knowing how much I know, yan yung na-assess kapag tinitingnan mo yung key competencies. If you're only looking at the standardized test, it's only a snapshot. It's knowledge based, that's all. But it doesn't show how did that child persist through getting the answers. Baka hinulaan niya lang. Did the child go and use the dictionary to find out the answer for this? Did the child engage in a conversation? Yung ganun ba, yung mas makikita mo yung kung ano yung ginagawa. It also empowers the student to become experts at their learning. Ay, nangyari. And then it shows you rich learning contexts, like group work, that's a rich learning context, or yung mga real life problem solving, yung mga ganun hindi mo maa-assess kung standardized yung test. And then, so yung assessment ng key competencies looks at knowledge and skills versus knowledge to carry out meaningful tasks. Because it's not enough that you have the skills, it's not enough that you have the knowledge, but are you going to persist through the task when you're faced with challenges, or what are you going to do when there is a setback? Diba? You may be the most intelligent child in that class, but you can't problem solve beyond what's given to you. So if you don't have the set of answers, anong gagawin mo? So yun yung things na na-assess ng key competencies. How resourceful is the child? So all those other, kumbaga, soft skills. Or how well they work with other people. Kasi in the real world, iha-hire ka ba? Kung sobra kang talino, iha-hire ka ba kung wala ka naman makasundo ng mga office mates? Of course not. And so, yun, importante yun, lahat. Which you can't assess when there's a standardized test. So, nag-include ako na rubric. So, itong rubric, sample lang ito. And I also shared that dun sa shared drive natin. There is a PowerPoint, ano ba to? Showing the key competencies. So, the key competencies are, yun nga, self-management, participating and contributing, using language, texts, and symbols, and then thinking and relating to others. So, those are the 5 key competencies. So ito, sample lang to nung rubric. Not all teachers use this, but it's I thought I'd put this as a sample from the ministry because this is a good guide. You know, other teachers would just write specific examples of what they do in the classroom or at school. And ito sample lang. Like, I rarely show leadership in small groups. And then I always display a positive attitude, or I always volunteer in these activities. So this just shows you what sorts of things our teachers look at when we're assessing self-management. So that's the key competencies. Meron po bang mga tanong? Any questions so far?
Tungkol dun sa app, Ja. I think it's very helpful to track of the progress of the child. And I think that's the main intention, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pero on the side of the parents, lalong-lalo na dun sa mga busy, may mga na-encounter ba kayo na sabihin na, yeah, it's good, but you know, we can't really do it dahil unang-una kung ano yung mga pinagkakabalaan nila. So they find it not really helpful or useful for them. They would rather talk to the teachers rather than going to use the app.
That's a good question. What we did in our school is we came out with a survey. How they feel. Nung the first year na nag-shift kami from paper reports to online reporting, naglabas ng survey. How do you feel about this? Pero prior to putting the reporting on the CISO app, ginagamit na yon. Pero hindi pa standardized across our school kung paano ka mag-post ng work. So some would have like itong comment, itong nasa screen. some would have something like that. Itong like reading comment, tas video yan madidinig mo kung paano nagbabasa yung bata.
Right.
Level so and so is reading at level 22 and is a fluent reader, can easily decode texts at level 1 of the curriculum. These are journals from the gold box and school journals part 1. She uses, so alam mo, nire-relate dun sa mga books para alam ng parent, yung pala yun. She uses a variety of strategies when she encounters a word that she does not know. This includes adjusting her pace, rereading the word. So yan, you're talking about strategies in reading. That she sometimes gets stuck with vowel combinations, blah, 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 blah. Next steps, and then my next steps. We'll continue to support her reading fluency on a word level by working on the phonemes, phonogram cards. This will help her recognize spelling patterns and be exposed to the sounds of various blends, blah, blah. Anyway, so it can be really detailed. Pero yung
Napaka-detail nga
iba,
dito.
yung iba, group work lang. Alam mo, so yung pinag-usapan din namin sa school, paano tayo mag-report para anong gusto nating makita sa post, anong gusto natin maipakita sa parent pag nag-post tayo. Kailangan standardized din yan across the school. Kasi pwede, pinicturean mo lang, ano to, di ba? Okay, nagwo-work siya with another child, pero walang detailed
description.
explanation.
Kasi just the follow-up comment in terms of halimbawa dito school niya, pinadala na ako ng link doon sa app na ginagamit nila. But I did not actually go into using that app. So inaantay ko lang na mag face-to-face interview with the teacher. Doon ko lang makikita ko ano yung feedback tungkol sa kanya. So it's really something that is helpful for me ngayon, yung binanggit mo kung gaano ka parang on time, tsaka yung reporting, real time reporting sa kung ano nangyayari.
Mag-comment ako kay Kuya, additional lang para kay Kuya Joey. Actually ako ganun nung una, hindi ko rin siya pinapansin yung mga ganun yung link.
Yeah.
Pero tinitignan pala ni yung kung nagko-comment kami o hindi.
Yeah.
Tinitignan niya. So one time umuwi siya and then sabi niya, tatay, hindi mo pa tinitignan yung hindi mo pa nakikita yung mga pinopost ko sa siso.
Oo, nakikita kasi.
Hindi pa anak, ano bang meron doon? Tignan mo at mag-comment ka. Okay, sige. Tinignan ko siya and then nakita ko, yun nga, nung una ko nakita yung mga siso, nakikita ko lang yung mga pinopost ng teacher nila na na naglalaro naglalaro sila sa playground, parang ganun. Sabi ko nga, yun sa mga baguhan.
Yeah.
Ang unang kong reaction, ano ba to? Walang ginagawa sa school. Hindi yata nag-aaral, naglalaro-laro lang. Yun yung unang kong reaction. So nung mga sumunod na messages, hindi ko na siya kiniklik, pero yung pala, nagpo-post na sila ng work. And yun nga, dapat nag-guilty rin ako kasi nung sabi sa akin ng anak ko, ba't di ka nagko-comment? Nakita mo na ba? Hindi pa. Sige, sabi ko, sige. After that,
so weekly yung reporting nyo o
ako almost, so ang required sa amin, well, hindi. Ang required is per term merong isang writing. So ito reading comment yan. Mahaba yan kasi marami akong sinulat dyan pero pwedeng kahapon meron lang snapshot of whatever work. So for us, kasi may tags naman na folder yan. So ang requirement sa school namin, and this is different for every school. Our school decided to do this aggressively because it's a good tool, and all the parents and all the teachers, I like it because it's real time. It's easy for me to do snapshot, and then i-edit ko at the end of the day yung So
that's good.
Ang requirement per term, 1 reading comment, 1 writing comment, 1 math comment, and 1 key competency per term. So in 2 terms, so mas better siya kasi dun sa paper report is at the middle of the year and only at the end of the year. Meron kang 1 general, may reading, writing, math, and then key competency, tapos general comment like attendance or whatever. Yun middle of the year lang. Pero since may season na, ang dali lang yan pag term break, lahat ng report.
That's really good.
kita mo yung progress, and even if kung walang mahabang comment yung teacher, let's say, video niya nung February yung reading, tapos after a month, binidyo ulit yung reading, makikita mo naman wow, mas mabilis magbasa or nasa ganitong level na. So, ayun, hindi na, the evidence speaks for itself, kumbaga. So,
Thank you, Ja. Cecil?
Yep, may question ako tungkol dun sa app. Kasi nga, nasanay din nga ako dun sa app na yun since nung nag-daycare pa rin yung anak ko, yun sinabi nga ni Maya na story part. Natutuwa ako dahil every development meron siya dahil dun sa story part na yun. Ngayon, we're using CISO nga, yung sinabi mo. Pero recently ata ginamit ng school yung last year ata. And then ako naman baliktad. Gusto ko laging may nakikita dahil nga busy nga kami, alam ko busy din yung teacher, so wala kaming chance na mag-meet na face-to-face, tas pandemic pa. So ang question ko is, so actually na-answer mo na yung ibang question kung how often sila nag-a-upload. At saka I usually comment din kasi para at least na-acknowledge ko na nakikita ko yung, nababasa ko yung update niya. Pero ang question ko is, sino ba ang nakakakita ng app na yun? Kasama rin ba yung student? Or sino din ang nag-upload?
So ganito, ako sa class ko, tinuturuan ko yung students mag-upload. Because alangan naman ako yung parating gumagawa. So minsan, kung gusto nila, so minsan natapos na yung writing, tapos sasabihin ko, would you like to share that on CISO? May iPad naman sa school Tapos meron siyang parang QR code, isa-scan ni bata, tapos picturean niya yung work niya. Minsan maayos, minsan parang ganyan yung papel, tas yung mesa. Wala yung So, mixed age yung class ko, sasabihin ko, year 2 or year 3, go and ask yung year 6, tulungan ka. Tapos ayusin nyo dapat maayos. So, tuturuan mo paano mag-upload. And then yung comment, minsan walang comment, depende kung gaano ka-busy yung teacher. Minsan nag-add akong comment, or minsan sasabihin ko sa bata, alright, a comment kung gusto nila, or pwedeng record ng comment. So, depende yan sa school. Kami kasi, aggressively, in the past 4 years, 5, matagal na actually before ako before ako nag-start sa Tawa School, ginagamit na nila yung CISO. Pero the past 3 years lang nag-decide, we're gonna do our reporting on CISO, and we will standardize the way that we report. Kasi iba-iba like kung masipag yung teacher, sa class ko ako masipag kasi hawak ko phone ko, chak, upload. Ganun lang Yung mga estudyante ko, sila na din kasi may matatanda ako. Pero kung junior class ka, wala ka oras. Wala ka oras na sa teacher, ang daming bata yan. So minsan may class activity, yung one-on-one, matrabaho yun So they do it kapag sisingin mo siya kapag ka CRT, pagka on release yung teacher, minsan saka siya nag-a-upload ng work. So, depende yan sa school nyo. Pero it's good kasi you can raise that conversation. And you can say, other schools are using these apps as a platform to report to parents. I-suggest nyo. Kasi binabayaran na ng school So the more that you use it, the better it is for both the rest of the school community. It's just that the school needs, dami naming meeting nun na paano i-standardize. Tapos nung sa simula, nasa stress yung mga teacher kasi biglang may required na. So kung teacher ka, masipag ka magagaganyan, which ako, I like doing it. Walang problema. Pero kung busy ka, 30 estudyante mo na 5-year-old, diba? Ang hirap nun. So, at first, na-stress yung teachers kasi it's so time-consuming, it's hard. Pero, we shifted to that form of reporting. Now, okay na kaming lahat. Tapos, merong parents like yung tinanong ni Joey na hindi mag-engage. Meron din na ganun. So, ang ginagawa, sabi ko nung sa simula, should I print out the report on paper to send to parents? Stand up school principal sabi, no, because we're forcing them to use it. We've asked the community, this is the feedback we got. There are a few people who are not engaging. We're forcing them to engage. And so, ako yung email ko nung sa simula, sabi ko, welcome to term 2. And then sabi ko, some children will be anxious. Please open CISO, show them the work they've done in term 1. Parang din yun story, yung tawag doon, nagamit for mga autistic children. learning story.
Social story. Social
to get
story.
them to get
Sorry.
to prep them for next term. Tapos parati naming nire-remind like, oh, we will be sending out reporting posts soon. Please check your CISO. It will be tax reporting. So para pagdating ng parent interview middle of the year, nakita na nila, hindi surprise. Parang, nakita mo ba yung post na ganyan? Ganon, nakita na. So mas may rich yung pag-uusapan. Kumbaga. And then,
I would just like to share nga yun sa sabi ni Joey. Actually, it's really a great tool kasi minsan pag tinatanong niyo yung mga anak niyo na anong ginawa niyo sa school? Nothing. But actually, if you look at the tool and you see the photo, a strategy of them actually opening about what they are doing, and it's actually helping them as well. Talk about what they are doing. As tell me, what were you doing at this? I can see that you're working on this number. I can't understand why, but it's more about that. Tell me what's going on. And it's actually a good way for them to revisit what they have been learning. And again, it's that engagement of parents with children's learning. It's a great tool actually for them, for your children. Sabi nga ni Ahmed, di ba? Si Laya, sabi niya, hindi ka naman nagko-comment, Daddy. It's a way for children to actually, my parents are interested in what I'm doing. Yeah, so it's a great tool. Tapos yung sabi ni Cecil na visibility, yung magko-comment ka. It's for us as teachers, that's really important. Kasi again, engagement. So you are interested in what your children are doing real time, and if there are questions or there are some challenges that your child is facing at school with regard to this work, then you can support them because that's where the teachers, lalo na sa amin sa early childhood, that's where we utilize how we can communicate to the parents kasi nga minsan yung drop off, pick up, madali yan kasi very busy, so no opportunity to engage ng face to face. Yun, using the platform is really good.
Actually kinopya lang yan ng primary sa ECE. Ang tagal na ginagawa yan ng ECE, parang in the past few years lang ginaya ng primary. And which I think is such a powerful tool. Kasi it's transparency also. It's not only for the parents, it's also empowering the students. Like senior kids are expected to upload their work on CISO. Minsan yung mga ina-upload, yung minsan nga pag lunchtime may gumawa lang ng Lego. So sabihin, I want to upload this on CISO. So, sige, wala namang mawawala. Bahala ka. Diba? Parang gusto nila yan. So may student voice. And then yung isa pang useful is, let's say may behavioral problem. Meron kasing function ng CISO na teacher can only see it. So yung mga observations mo, hindi mo na sinusulat sa notebook. Let's say, nagdabog si bata, tinapon niya lahat ng mga mesa, which nangyari recently sa classroom ko. Binidyo ko yun secretly, pero naka-private yun. So when it comes to the point na, let's say, the parents aren't on your side, and not all the families will be engaging and will be on the school side, then you can show that, well, this is evidence. At this time, on this ganyan, this is what your child has done, and this is the video. So it's transparent, and that's real evidence that you can collect of how they work, how they behave. It's real time. So it's a very powerful tool to use that type of technology. But again, have a conversation with your school, kasi some schools will be more mas ano na sila in terms of, 'di ba, mas advanced na sila in terms of how they want to use technology, and others will just have it, but there's no kumbaga standard as to how to use it.
Thank you, Ja. Manaychud and then Cecil.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me? I'm not using my headphone.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I posted there because, it's obvious I came late. Kaya hindi ko alam kung sa anong time ako pwede mag-share. So, baka mamaya naman. Okay, o kaya baka off tangent doon sa slide ni Ja. But I can share something about reporting at saka yung comments ng estudyante sa primary school. At saka reaction din namin as parents. So, mamaya na.
You can go now. Go it for now.
O baka marami akong na-miss out. O sige. So, ang ano ko, ang i-share ko or comment, hindi actually CISO. Kasi nung time na yun, I think ilang years na ba? Kasi nasa uni na nga. Bali, around 2014 or 2015. I cannot remember na nagamit na sila niyan. But, there was wala pa no? Sa primary school. O kaya hindi pa activated.
Hindi pa uso. Parang kailan lang, 2017, umalis ako Berhampur, hindi pa na-invento yan. Parang nag-start pa lang gamitin. 2016 siguro nag-start gamitin. Tapos
okay.
Hindi pa masyado.
Yeah, so I was right. I think there was no CISO then yet. But I can remember that there were some websites that the primary school were using or was using about the feedbacking, the progress of the students, etc. And nung time na yon, mas palagi almost every day ang email ng teacher. Kahit na walang problema in terms of behavior, etc. Talagang halos everyday ang email ng yung form teacher. Kaya as parents mismo kami nahi-inspire at magi-engage, 'di ba? Kasi alam mo na the teacher wanted your child to belong. And there was really a conscious effort. Meron pa ngang mga times na mismo kami pinapa-join kami sa activity ng klase. For example, sa social studies, I don't know the exact term anymore. Basta tungkol sa economics and mga social science issues. Pinapa-join pa kami, journalism, mga ganyan. Tapos, updated kami ng mga activities nila. So, that means, may struggle kami niyan kay AJ kasi palaging kinukumpare ni AJ noon na bakit hindi nga yung mga comments mo, Ahmed, naririnig namin yan. Hindi galing sa amin, baliktad. Yung anak namin ang nagko-complain. At saka, there were tears, really. Kasi, hindi, noong una, gusto niya nang umuwi nga. Siguro nasabi ko na yan kay Mai or kung kanino man. Yun ang struggle namin the earliest years. Kasi nga, gusto niya nang umuwi kasi hindi daw nagtuturo ang teacher. The common comment or reaction. Kami naman ang nagsasabi na hindi, nagtuturo yan. Yeah, na iba lang ang approach. Hayaan mo, marami kang matututunan. Just take your time. So baliktad ang nangyari, eventually yung adjustment nandun, nag-a-adjust kami as parents kung paano siya maniwala. Nag-a-adjust naman siya kung paano siya matututo. So later on, ikat ko na lang yung story. Siya na yung nagsasabi na sa iba na, "Uy, marami akong natutunan." And eventually he really liked the curriculum. So ganun lang. Parang talagang malaki ang adjustment. Ako naman yung nagsasabi na hindi nagtuturo ang mga teachers dito, hindi mo lang na-notice kasi it's not obvious, but actually yan, learning experience yan. Sanay kasi siya, 'di ba, na nasa harap lang ang teacher, hindi umiikot-ikot, facilitator lang, parang ganun. But eventually yun na, success story na nagustuhan niya. So yun lang ang pwede kong ma-share.
Thank you, Ma'am Jude. Cecil?
Yes, follow-up question lang kasi regarding dun sa season na banggit ni Jaja. So who chooses or decided what information or topic na or work ng bata ang i-upload? Yung teacher ba o yung bata na do you want this to upload? Ganun ba yun?
Yan. So usually, yung mga curricular comments, yung pang-report talaga, teacher ang pumipili. Kasi syempre pipiliin mo yung best work or the work that best shows kung ano yung nagagawa ng bata. And then the rest, sila, or sasuggest mo kasi gusto mo rin may child student voice eh. Let's say nagtrabaho today, may ginawa, tapos tanong mo, Gusto mo ba i-upload yan? Let's say, nag-multiplication. O pag proud sila, gusto nila eh. At saka gusto
Ayun din.
nila mahawak na.
Oh, at saka isa pa rin
So-
kasi hindi gusto ko kasi malaman hindi lang yung kagalingan or yung best nilang ginawa kasi siyempre we don't know what's happening sa mga bata within the school. So I think you already mentioned, but I just want just to confirm na pwede din bang malaman namin or yun nga yung sinabi mo na may in-upload ka na ito yung ginawa ng anak mo na hindi naman maganda, pero I just want to let you know para aware kayo na may ginawang hindi okay. So with that kind of situation, halimbawa gusto kong mag-comment or meron akong gustong tanungin apart from yung magaling na ginawa ng anak ko or mag-check lang ako, pwede ko siyang i-private message sa CISO without my daughter aware na may nag-uusap kami.
So para siyang Facebook, may messenger part din siya eh. So pwede mo siya i-message mo or email mo yung teacher tapos sabihin mo, is there anything? Kasi kung alam mo kung may concerning, sasabihin niya naman sa'yo ng teacher eh. And, unless ikaw yung parent na, alam mo yun, nagde-death threat. Kasi minsan may ganun. May ganun akong parent ngayon eh. Ibang level eh. So parang hindi ko sasabihin lahat. Pagka, alam mo yun, nangongolekta ako ng evidence. Kasi pero yung normal na parent, i-message ko na o kanina medyo nakipag-away anak mo or whatever or makulit, ganon, kausapin mo na lang. So makukuha mo naman yan if there's anything concerning eh. They will
thank you.
communicate. Kung walang problema, usually wala ka naman you won't hear from them, which is good.
Nico?
Thank you.
Hi.
Kapatid.
Kapatid. Kapatid.
Plano kami lumipat sa New Zealand next year, no, in January. So dalawa yung anak namin, meron kaming 7-year-old, magsa-7 this coming June, and then an 11-month-old. So nagtitingin-tingin kami ng schools around Wellington, and ang question namin, kasi nakikita namin may mga Catholic schools rin na I think malaki ang population ng Filipinos in Catholic schools. Importante sa amin na yung mga anak namin exposed to that kind of culture rin, the Filipino culture. So ang tanong namin, ano bang difference ng Catholic school sa hindi ko alam anong tawag nila, state-run school ba? Public school? Secular?
Public school.
So anong difference ng Catholic school sa public schools in terms of curriculum?
Pwede ako mag-comment? Comment lang. Hindi naman kasi naka-enroll sa Catholic school ang anak ko. Pero may mga kakilala kasi kaming nasa Catholic school. And then, nako-compare din namin yung progress ng mga bata doon, tapos yung mga pinag-aaral nila. Hindi lahat ng Catholic school pare-pareho. May mga Catholic school na medyo academic ang approach. Medyo academic, hindi totally academic. Tapos meron din namang halos pareho lang ng public school. The main difference lang, I guess, is that yun nga, mayroong additional subject. Meron silang religion or parang ganon na subject. And basically, ang curriculum is pareho lang naman.
Yeah.
Yun lang. Yun lang na-observe ko. Pero baka merong mga...
School is called a state integrated school. State integrated schools deliver a different program that still follows New Zealand curriculum. I teach Montessori. Montessori is medyo magulo eh. I'm in a public school, but I have a special character class. So usually, ang Catholic is also a special character school. Pwedeng magsingil ng donation. Well, kasi yung recent na rule ng gobyerno, bawal nang humingi ng pera for education eh. So tinatawag lang donation. So kung makapal yung mukha mo, pwede kang hindi magbayad. Pero kung alam mo naman na, well, this is for additional teacher aid and additional resources and whatever school trip, then magbabayad ka. Usually parang 400 a term. Tama ba? Yun yung main difference. Plus,
$200 a year.
Ano?
$200 a year.
Sa Montessori, 400 a term.
And
mahal.
okay.
At saka sa Cardinal Maki-Free, parang 400 a term.
Depende siguro.
Depende. Si TJ, di ba sa St. Peter and Paul? Cecil din, yung anak niya, St. Peter and Paul. Catholic school, yung tinatawag na may character, mayroong certain band. Pero basically, the curriculum is the same. At saka, yun nga, in terms of mga payments o kaya fees. So, mayroon tinatawag na Catholic board na tumatanggap ng payment sa school for every year na binabayaran. Di ko maalala kung magkano. Basta ginagawa namin, for example, siguro mga nasa 500
Attendance
yata.
due.
Attendance
525.
500 something per year sa primary. And then I think and then a little higher sa high school. Ayan. So, ang pinagkaiba kasi si Andre nag Catholic school nung primary tapos nag public school nung high school. The hot intermediate saka sa high school. Pinagkaiba basically is yung attendance due sa hindi mo siya pwedeng ano tawag diyan, tax refund sa gobyerno. Pagka sa public ang bata at saka pwede mong i-tax refund a certain percentage of that.
Private, you mean, Joey? Sa Catholic school, you can refund.
No, you can't. You cannot.
Okay.
So unless na sabi ni Jaja na specifically sinabi ng school na this is a donation, kung ano man yung project nila, like
tax refund.
Pwede mo siyang i-tax refund. So pero yung sa public school, the whole tuition can be pwedeng i-tax refund yan. Pero maliit lang yung bayad sa public school. So
siguro may question. Yung question ko, tanong ng kapatid ko, paano mo malalaman? So especially for the parents, so aside from location, what's a good way of finding out kung maganda ba yung school?
Hero report is a good one. Well, it's a go-to ERO report, and then talking to people around here.
ERO report. Tapos alam ko word of
available
mouth.
yan, di ba? Online.
Online
available siya online. Yeah.
Tapos word of mouth from friends. Kasi sila mga parents na nakilala mo.
Yan, nabasa ko.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Yes, nakita ko nga yung ERO report online na nagtitingin kami ng schools Yeah, so okay, good to know na okay siya na basis of selecting.
It is, yeah.
Kasi yung sagot ko sa kanya, sabi ko, I disagree.
Yeah, subjective din ang era.
Ibang points of view.
Having araw, tapos 5 minutes
mo,
meron ng report about the school. So parang sabi ko, wala siya.
I think, Nicole, a good way to do it actually is once you're here is actually visit the school.
Yeah,
and I always encourage sa early childhood, I always tell them go check the competition and then let me know what you think. Kasi if your school, if the school you're going to is or where you're teaching, you're confident about the quality of education, hindi ka matatakot na magsabi go and check the other schools. So yun.
I think kasi like yung mga nagvi-visit sa amin, nai-impress sila. Yung principal namin na bago is very hands-on, very tsaka maboka siya with parents. And so yung first impression mo with the people who work there, like mukha ba masaya yung mga teachers or mukha ba sila overworked? Diba? Makikita mo yun yung okay ba tong principal? Did they give time for me to your back to school? Yung facilities also. Yeah, minsan pagka poor yung facilities ng school, minsan, I'm just gonna say as someone who works in a school, yung funding na pupunta sa ibang bagay like let's say special needs or extra PA, makikita mo din So parang telling na bakit mukhang basura yung toilet namin. After 5 years lang na naayos. Yung ganon, minsan may din yun That's school
may question. Maganda tong question.
Si muna? Jude. Quick question.
No, it's just maybe a sharing for, or maybe a form of insight for Nicole. Oh, nakita ko kasi rin si Mavic. Hi, Mavic. From the Philippines pareho, no? So, ang sa experience namin as parents, bali, doon naman ako mag-share sa other side, yung other side of the fence. Kung ini-expect ng parents na tuturuan ng our father o kaya nung mga ganon na ini-expect natin na pwedeng i-take up sa elementary, sa primary school, being the core education, kung doon sa public, hindi yan mangyayari. Kasi very cross-cultural. So, ang taas-taas ng respect for others' cultures, which means pagdating pa lang ng estudyante sa level 1, for example, primary yung year 1, kakanta na ng iba-ibang kanta ng Maori, ng mga Samoan, mga ganyan-ganyan. So, which means na hindi mo kailangang i-expect na magdadasal sila. Ibang klaseng dasal. Kasi iba ang perspective ng dasal dito sa New Zealand. But as far as a little experience is concerned sa paparangi school ko naman, it doesn't mean that the students are not getting spiritual. It could not be the religiosity of the teachers plus the primary schoolers, but they are also taught and they are also engaged in spirituality. So yun lang masasabi ko, meron pa ring spirit. It depends on how the teachers value and respect others' cultures, including that spiritual being or spiritual wellness.
Thank you.
Para si AJ noon, parang tinatanong, hindi naman kami nagdadasal, hindi naman kami you cannot expect that kasi nga wala nga sa curriculum, kumbaga iba ang kumbaga perspective.
Thank you,
so,
MJ.
Yeah.
Cecil, would you like to say what your question is, or go ahead?
That's my question kasi ako may year 8 tapos I'm considering a school. So what about the decile rating? Should you consider that as well when choosing a school? Kasi I'm looking at Sacred Heart and St. Mary's College. So, at saka hindi pa rin kasi ako masyadong clear dun sa decile rating. Concern ba dapat tayo doon?
Ang decile just says gaano ba kayaman yung mga tao na nakatira sa neighborhood ng school. That's all it says. So let's say mas mayaman yung mga tao sa Island Bay, randomly, Island Bay, kasi alam ko mataas decile ng school, mahal bahay dun eh. So, mas mayaman mga tao dun, higher ang decile ng school. Kapag, let's say, Porirua, Newtown, alam ko mas mababa decile dyan sa Newtown kasi maraming, ngayon mahal na, lahat mahal na ngayon, pero dati, pangit yung flats, merong yung government flats na malapit, mas mababa ang decile. So basically, the school decile just says how rich that suburb is or how poor it is. Now, why was it used as a measure that it's a good school? Because especially for us Filipinos, minsan it's not always good, pero for us Filipinos, we think mas mahal yung school, diba? Or mas maganda yan. But I would say, based on my experience, I'm going to say, pag mas mababa ang decile ng school, mas maraming funding yan from the government. Nung nag-work ako sa decile 4 na school, which Berhampore used to be decile 4 before na gentrify, ang dami naming professional development. Ang daming PD. I learned so much in my 6 years there. Sobrang dami kong natutunan. And I would say, kasi challenging din yung ibang estudyante kasi halo-halo eh. Merong galing sa flats, merong mga special needs, merong not from well-off families. Nahahasa yung teacher. Gagaling ka talaga. If you're not exposed to that kind, kung homogeneous yung grupo mo, then you'll only learn how to deal with a certain type of population. So I will still say the lower the decile, sometimes the better the teachers. But is it the best environment for your child? So you go and minsan like meron akong Maori na student na lumipat ng intermediate, high decile, 10 decile yung school. Hindi niya naman nagustuhan kasi parang napaka-snobby daw ng mga classmates. Tapos Iba yung culture eh. So, maganda na makilala mo yung mga tao from that school. Yun nga, ma-visit mo, how does it feel? Does it feel like, snobby ba yung mga bata? So, mahirap kasing sabihin, it's not all about the decile. Kasi baka snob pa ng mga bata. Or hindi mo naman makasundo yung mga parents. So,
thank you, Cha. Mayi, and then Mavic, mamaya.
Thank you.
I would just like to add na actually decile is now being taken out sa school system because they find that masyado siyang it becomes a judgment point for parents and how they deal with yung families around and all that. So decile rating is now being taken out. And tulad din ng sabi nga ni Jaja, the lower the decile, the better. Kasi actually, if you're looking at the exposure of your children, mas exposed sila sa wider experience. And if you're going to look at key competencies, these children are actually really going to develop those key competencies in this environment. Kasi wide range, varied experience. Yeah, unlike kung yung sa high decile nga, it's very homogeneous tulad ng sabi ni Jaja. So the thinking is almost all alike. So you're not exposed to those different ways of thinking, different kinds of, economic differences and all that. So, yeah.
Usually, low decile school, multicultural. Dati to, ngayon baka mas multicultural na yung high decile school. Pero dati high decile, puro puti. So, ngayon baka nagbago na, pero mostly ganun pa rin yung makikita mo.
It's very good. Mavic and Ken, welcome from the Philippines.
Magandang hapon po. Good afternoon, everyone from 34-degree Manila.
Good to see you both.
34-degree hot and humid Manila.
Yeah.
So, pasensya na po ngayon, hindi po kami nakasali. In fact, in relation to what is being talked about this morning, we actually just came from our older son's first communion. So, so it so happened. So at least in relation to school and spiritual activities also. So at least naswertehan ko po na pag-uwi ko last Tuesday, Tuesday the 3rd. It so happened that it's parang fiesta time dito sa parish dito sa community sa Parañaque where my parents are. So we were able to include our older son at least for his first confession and first communion as well. So at least we got that sorted here. Actually, in relation to what has been recently discussed, especially with regard to the decile rating, I guess just a question that arose from my end would be, I guess the decile system would not factor in any way, especially with regard to colleges or secondary schools. Will it be, I suppose, am I correct to say that it will not be a factor, let's say, with regard to entry into either uni or the Polytech? Diba? And like dito, it's quite a given thing na the standing of a particular maybe school or anything will factor sa uni.
May share lang ako dyan na nakilala kong Filipino family na very talaga sila focus sa ganon na yung anak nila would really excel academically. Started in a Catholic school, primary, and then when the boy went to high school, they enrolled him in Scots College in Wellington, which is well known to be good and all these things and sports and lahat ng mga good reputation aspects ng isang high school na pinopromote nila.
$20,000 a year.
Exactly. So ang mga comparable yan sa Hibs ng Upper Hutt, yung international school at iba pa. So but that school did not work out for the boy. So he went to uni, but actually did not proceed with the course or with the major that he was working on. So hindi guarantee. So it's how the student is actually learning and is welcome and is feel okay doon sa kanyang school and proud of himself rather than the school itself. Sa Pilipinas, sabi mo nga, pangalan pa lang, sigurado ka na sa sa kung ano, galing ito Ateneo, galing Lasal. So, okay na ngayon. So, medyo, iba dito. That's what I'm saying.
May
Thank you,
question,
Joey.
may question yung kapatid ko nung isang araw. Sabi niya, how globally competitive are schools here? Sino ba sa inyo may college na ganyan or yung kung gustong mag-aral sa uni in overseas? Kasi sila palipat-lipat sila ng bansa eh. Ewan ko kung tatagal sila dito.
Ewan ko, baka may...
Mayroon akong kakilala, expat yung parents niya and all that. Yeah, he was excelling. He actually went to one of the big universities in the US. Pero dun din naman kasi siya nag-high school. But when they moved there nung high school siya, he was one of the best. And he studied here in New Zealand for the first how many years? So, yeah.
Speaking of competitive, kung internationally siguro, ang advantage ng graduate galing dito is that acknowledge yung degree dito in many countries. As compared sa atin na kailangan mo pang ipa-assess muna bago nila tanggapin na yes, you are, bago nila i-accredit yung yung degree or yung qualification mo. Pero academically, based on my observation kasi nagtuturo sa uni, nagkaroon na rin ako ng experience na magturo sa Pilipinas. In terms of academics, unfortunately mas well-equipped ang ating mga estudyante sa Pilipinas.
Depende sa school kung saan nag-aaral.
Tapos pagkumpara kasi nasa BQ ni ako. So, yun yung isa sa mga na-observe ko. Ang mga estudyante natin sa Pilipinas, pagka siguro itatapat mo siya sa estudyante dito sa uni, in terms of academics may advantage. In terms of resilience and tawag ito, patience when it comes to doing hard work and mga requirements, lamang ang mga estudyante natin from the Philippines. Pero yun nga, pagdating naman sa self-confidence at saka yung ability to throw themselves out there, meron din namang advantage yung mga graduates natin dito. So yun, pero internationally, lamang yung dito. Kasi accredited ng mas maraming bansa yung kanilang degree, yung kanilang qualification.
Kasi accredited, no? So kung nag-college high school ka dito, gusto mo mag-uni sa Europe, mas madali lang lumipat. Kasi maraming akong kilala na like yung anak ni Archie, nag-aral sa London. Tapos yung Australia, madali lang kasi.
Halos parehas.
Pero Europe, di ba? Kasi like yung mga teachers na nagturo doon, hindi na kailangan magpa-assess ng qualification. Automatically pwede ka na dito mag-work eh. So I'm thinking pareho lang pag sa Europe ka nag-aral.
Yeah.
So ayun. Anyway, okay, we'll continue. Ito puro assessment. Medyo boring pero sige. I'll go through the next part of the slide. Para lang makita yung anong itsura ng mga exams. Paano ba ito i-share? Share. Okay. Parent-teacher conferences. So even with the education app, we still have parent-teacher student. So usually the student, pagka juniors, pag bata pa, pag primary school, students are encouraged to be part of it. Pagka college at saka intermediate, required sila to be part of it. Pag meron kang problema or concern na gustong pag-usapan with the parent, you can always ask for a meeting with the teacher anytime during the school year. Okay, and importante yan eh. So don't just rely on yung apps or yung mga pinapadala online or yung report at the middle or end of the year. If you need to talk to the teacher, just let them know and they will make time for that. So importante yan kasi it's a conversation. It's also the time where you get to meet the teacher. Anong klase ba yung teacher? Ano ba yung expectations niya? You get to build a relationship. And then, Kasi education is a partnership. It's not just the teacher. You don't just dump your children at school. And then, kung may problema sa bahay, please go and talk to the teacher para alam din nila kung ano yung nangyayari. Kasi minsan may mga behavior sa school na hindi mo ma-pinpoint kung bakit. Like, yung estudyante na kinuwento ko na yung nilalamig, tapos nag-freak out siya pag nilalamig, nangyayari na naman. So, kahapon meron akong meeting with the parent. Kasi nangyayari na naman. And then, hindi namin alam what's triggering it, kung anong nangyayari sa bahay. So, sobrang importante yung parent meetings. And it's also a way where you can share your culture. Kasi like, yung Vietnamese yun yung estudyante ko. So, parang, matagal ko nang nire-recommend to see a counselor or go to their GP para ma-refer sa psychologist. Ayaw nila, parang yung tatay dinala daw para ma-resetahan ng Chinese herbs. Parang ganon. And since nagawa na niya lahat, tas gusto pa niya ipag-kung fu yung anak niyang babae na yun daw to toughen her up para daw di nilalamig. Okay, sige, kung fu yung sagot dun sa mga psychological issues niya, di ba? So, pero makikinig ka lang, di ba? After how many meetings, nag-meeting ulit kami kahapon. So sabi ko, I'm going to insist for you to see as counselor or psychologist. Di ba? Before this becomes a mental health issue, at least someone professional can talk to them. Kasi ako yung nagiging counselor. Sinabi ko, I can talk to your child about how to deal with the friends at school or schoolwork, but not give professional advice. So, ayun, parang hindi na daw gumana yung Chinese herbs. So, baka, hopefully papayag mo na dadalhin sa counselor, di ba? Pero anyway, so sobrang importante to have that conversation. At ako as a teacher, mas naiintindihan ko, sige, ganyan sila, yan ang culture nila, di ba? Respect mo yun, pero insist mo pa rin na, di ba, ganito yung mas recommend mo mangyari. Okay, let's go to assessments. Share ko sa inyo. So, paano ba ina-assess? Ito yung curriculum levels. Makikita nyo yan. Baka yung school ninyo gumagamit ng ganyan. Makikita nyo din yan online. So, pag year 1 is 5 years old. They start school, primary school at age 5. And formal assessment starts at that age. Itong mga gray, yan yung curriculum level. So, this goes up to year 13. Primary school is year 1 to year 6. Intermediate, year 7 to 8. Some primary schools go up to year 8. So year 1 to 8. And then college is year 9, 10, 11, 12. 13? Tama? Ba't may 13? So hanggang level 8 yan ang curriculum. So year 1, 2, and 3, nag-overlap yan eh. So minsan, medyo confusing sa parents kung paano ba, kung where they should be at what year. Pero basically, yan yung guide. Now, ano ba yung dapat natututunan nila? I'll give you a little bit of a history. Noong 2007, nung yung gobyerno, national party pa, they launched what you call the national standard to give a clear measure of where your child is at. So, itong poster na to, shinare ko to dun sa drive, mahahanap nyo siya eh. It shows you what the child, what skills are expected of your child per year level. Like ito, sobrang liit eh, pero merong malaking version yan na nandun sa slides. So, yan, kunyari, after 1 year at school, so at 6 years old, dapat, andito yung mga skills eh. Ganito itsura ng writing nila. Thus, these are some of the math skills. Now, wala nang national standard ngayon. Nung 2007 hanggang hanggang napalitan tayo ni Jacinda, sinusunod ng teachers yung national standard. So, meron kaming test na binibigay middle of the year and end of the year, and we report where your child is at compared to the standard. Is it below, at, or above the curriculum level? Merong two conflicting thoughts. There are parents who love that. A lot of teachers did not, because it doesn't provide a holistic view of learning. It only shows reading, writing, math. That's all. It doesn't show your attitude towards the work. It doesn't show anything else. Whether na-frustrate ka ba sa work, no, it doesn't show. And it was detrimental because nag-fixate yung parents dun sa sa standard. So tinanggal. Pero I'm including that in this slide because it's a simple view. They've made lots of resources to communicate to parents what you can expect from your child. But I will let you know na don't get hung up on this document, diba? You can't condense all of the skills in one document, but it's a good measure. It's a good simple measure of just to see where they should be at, what they should be doing at that age. So may link dito. If you click on that link, it will take you to the website where you can download the reading and writing standards specific to your child's age and level. So nandyan yan sa slides. We'll share it with you. Kasi hindi ko na-explain yan kasi masyadong masalimuot eh. I'll just give an example. So for example, I chose year 2. So yung curriculum document na ginagamit ng teachers to say, is your child progressing as expected? You will see it in the reading and writing standard, which this is the link for that. And then the other curriculum document, which is called the literacy learning progression. At kung year 2 yung anak nyo, at the end of year 2, your child should be working at level 1 of the curriculum. They should be able to read something like this. Yan yung text. Kasi ito yung mga descriptions nung kung ano ba dapat nagagawa. For example, the student uses grandfather's descriptive language, for example, dark, old, full of holes, shining away, and peeping through the holes to help them visualize the image of the night as a blanket. Sample lang to. Kasi ano to eh, may iba't ibang samples for you to look at because this is a poem, tas merong parang fiction text, tas meron ding non-fiction text. So yan, that's just a sample of what the teachers use to guide them when they make a report. Ano pa? Ito, writing. At the end of year 3, ganyan ang itsura ng writing ng anak ninyo. So kung nagsusulat sila ng, let's say, 3 sentences, that child probably is not working at the expected level. So at the end of year 3, pag ready na sila mag-year 4, ganyan na yung itsura. What does it say? The student includes a range of simple and compound sentences using the conjunctions but, because, and a range of sentence beginnings. Sample lang yan. The student uses subject-specific vocabulary. For example, smoothie, task, sanitizer, na mali yung spelling, which is okay, kasi hindi pa expected na ma-master niya yung spelling. Blender berry. Student spells most words correctly and edits her work independently. And then some words are misspelled, pero it's phonetic, like yung mga may konting mistakes. Ganun. Student draws on her oral language to create an informal tone, and then etc. etc. So what in writing, tinitingnan dyan ng teacher is the ideas that they come up with, how organized they are. By year 4, dapat nagsa-start na sila mag-paragraphing. The sentences that they use, tama ba subject-verb agreement? Tama ba yung sentence? How complex are the sentences? I went to paulit-ulit. So are there complex sentences, compound sentences? Vocabulary that includes mga figurative language and then yung mga metaphors, similes, ganun. And then vocab, sentence structure, and spelling, and punctuation. Yun yung mga tinitingnan. So, may rubric dyan. Hindi ko na in-include yung rubric. And math. So, may mga different strands of math. So, ito sample lang to kasi this only focuses on number. So, level 1, at the end of year 3, this is a sample of the math expectation. 18 plus 2. Ano ba itong problem na to? You have 18 turtles and you buy another 8 turtles from the pet shop. So, at the end of year 3, so 7 years old, turning 8, dapat magawa na niya yan. Tapos, may mga description din eh. Kasi sa atin, one way lang yung tinuturo sa'yo para mag-solve ng math problem eh. Dito, ang tinitingnan is the different strategies. Kasi pwede mong kung 18, tas nag-count ka 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, hanggang umabot ka doon sa sagot, hindi ka pa year 3 level. Year 2 lang yon kasi nagbibilang ka pa 1. Kapag nag-iisip ka na 18, I know that if I take 2 away from 8 and that's gonna be 20, you're regrouping, yan ang year 3 level. So, it doesn't matter kung nasagot mo, it matters paano mo sinagot. Yun yung ina-assess. And so, sa test, pwedeng nag-drawing ka ng 18 na dot na ganun, tinatali mo. Tapos binilang mo isa-isa. Nasagot mo ng tama yung test, it's still not a good measure whether year 3 level ka. Kasi hindi sa isa mo pa yun eh. So may mga different ways. The strategy that you use in solving that problem tells what level you are. So sample lang yan. Ito, ano pa ba ibang samples dito? So overview, medyo complex kasi yung math. May iba't iba siyang strands. So merong number and algebra, which is composed of sequencing, ordering, fractions, place value, tsaka basic facts. Yan yung mga addition, subtraction, the 4 operations. And then you've got geometry and measurement, and then you've got statistics and probability. So even at year 2 level, pwede mo nang turuan ng statistics like yung simple pictograph. Ayun. Kunyari, inutusan mo, anak, ayusin mo nga yung dishwasher. Tapos pwede na sila, itali mo nga kung ilan yung plato, ilan yung spoons, ilan yung ano. So at year 2, pwede mo na turuan ng statistics So may mga ibang levels. Sa reporting, merong strands, merong tinatawag na number stages. Baka info overload na to sa inyo, but I'll show it anyway. Kasi yung number stages, minsan nire-report yan ng teacher, pero baka hindi na i-explain sa inyo. So, yung curriculum level 1, ang number stage ng bata dapat nasa number stage 2 and 3. Tapos, under curriculum number 1, ang year 2, ang number stage niya is dapat nasa advanced counting or stage 4. Baka kasi narinig nyo na yan na report ng ng teachers sa inyo. Wag lang kayo ma-confuse. Iba yung number stage dun sa curriculum level. So baka info overload to, pero yeah, I just want to show you. So yung number stage only refers to the number and algebra aspect of the maths curriculum. It doesn't refer to the geometry, medyo complex. So 40% of the maths curriculum will be centered on numbers. Year 3 and below, 70% of the maths curriculum is centered on just the number and algebra. Okay, nandito na tayo sa standardized tests. So lahat ng primary school and intermediate use, lalakihan ko, what you call the PAT or Progress Achievement Test. Now, I'll give you a sample of how that looks like. Ito yung sa math. So, online yan. Tapos, ano bang year to? Year 3 ata itong kinuha ko eh. So, online yan gagawin ng mga bata. Which box have half the birds circled? So I told you earlier, we read this out aloud to the children. Napakamasalimuot na proseso. Binabasa mo isa-isa, tapos hihintayin mo sila na sagutin. Because we don't want the reading skill to get in the way of the math. Now, other schools may not do it that way, but our school decided to do that because it's a better measure of what they can do math-wise. It's not a reading test. So let's randomly answer. Yan. Next. Ayan. So ito year 4. So may mga iba-iba random. Sagutin natin. Para lang makita nyo anong itsura. Which of these has the number? Yan, random. So ganyan ang itsura ng test nila. Now, how long is this? Mga 45 minutes. So imagine nyo kung yung bata also has problems with attention. Towards the end, mga number 30, number 29 na minsan hinuhulaan na lang eh. So, alam mo yun, it's mahirap, kaya mahirap ang standardized test because hindi na-incorporate lahat ng factors. Pwedeng matalino siya talaga pero hindi niya lang kaya to sit through an hour. Actually, nung ginawa ko to with my year 3, beginning of the year, oh my Lord. supposedly this is timed. It's meant to be timed 45 minutes. For some schools will decide, we want to know how much they know, so we're not gonna time it. So when I did it with my year 3, umabot kami ng 1 hour, almost 1 hour and a half. Ang tagal. So yan yung math. And then they have the reading, yung reading comprehension. It just looks like this. Ganyan. So may mga questions dito, a-answeran ng mga bata. Oops, may napindot akong iba. Your test will begin. So merong sample. So ganyan. Tapos kung may mamiss ka, sasabihin, there are unanswered questions. So babalik. So this test, we don't read it out to them because they, we need to see if they can read. Tapos meron, so para sa mga nag-IELTS sa inyo, yung mga anak nyo, meron din silang parang IELTS. So merong listening test. Listening comprehension.
As the sun set,
Sample lang yan.
a young rabbit crept out from his hiding place in the bushes. He pricked up his ears and looked all around. There was no danger, so he hopped out into the grassy paddock. This grass looks really fresh, he said. Use the story to answer the questions. Listen to the first question and its answers. Choose the best answer.
Ayan, tapos yung questions. Actually, I found, ito yung question.
E1. The rabbit pricks up his ears and looks all around because he wants to A. See if there are other rabbits nearby.
Ipopos ko na. Ang napansin ko, yung children with a second language, ang daming bumabagsak sa test na to. Even some Filipinos, kasi ang daming expected sa'yo like you can only listen to the story once at the start, so you have to remember, you have to have good working memory, you have to be paying attention to every single detail, and then they ask the questions at the end. So
accent pa.
for those who are in na mga natural English speakers, it's a good measure of comprehension. Kasi kung dyslexic, for example, maganda yung listening comprehension ni bata. Pero pagdating dun sa reading comprehension, mas mababa yung reading comprehension. Dahil dun mo makikita na ano bang comprehension talaga ng bata. Tapos minsan, like yung mga ESOL students ko, meron akong Chinese, Vietnamese, ang baba ng listening, sobrang baba, pero mataas yung reading comprehension. And so, dahil ba sa accent, dahil ba hindi lang sila sanay dun sa, dun sa listening. And so yun, it gives you a good measure of paano mo tuturuan and ano ba yung interventions. And then, meron pa ditong ibang mga list of assessments na ginagawa namin. Pero siguro hindi ko na pag-usapan yan in detail kasi boring na Merong mga tanong.
Okay, thank you, Ja. Yeah. Baka may mga tanong. Yes, Cecil. We're closing to.
May question ako. Yep. Kasi may, speaking of assessment, kasi yung anak ko, minsan nakaka-receive kami ng email about ICAS. So, anong relation yun sa school? At saka yung Otago math, na may inuuwi siyang 5 problems. So sabi niya, Mami, 3 lang na answer ko. Pero sabi, okay lang na, sabi ng teacher. Okay. So ano yung relationship nun with that kind of grading and
Magandang
assessment?
tanong yan. So may mga tests for gifted or high achievers. Okay. ICAS is one of that. Kiwi competitions is another. And then may mga other interventions like the BP challenge or yung ePro 8. So pag nakatanggap kayo ng invitation for your child to participate in that, that's good because it's an extension. Ang maganda dyan sa ICAS is Australian-based yan. So yan something na pwede mong ilagay sa resume ng anak mo and may certificate yan and then may mabibigyan ka ng where ang standing nila
globally,
yeah. Kasi what I would find is itong PAT, ano lang to, New Zealand to ha. So So hindi yan global assessment. ICAS is a global assessment. Mas mahirap yung ICAS. Tsaka yung Kiwi competition.
May bayad ba yun? I don't remember nung
Bayad
nag-ICAS si Andre when he was in
Bayad
$20 ata yun.
Yeah.
Parang 10 per test or something like that. Tapos 3 yung test na pwede. Parang may math, English.
Science.
10 each. Parang ganun. Ewan ko baka mas mahal na ngayon. Pero mga parang...
Kasi minsan nakakaano kasi dahil halimbawa dati siya ang kukuha niya distinction. Tapos may all of a sudden credit lang. Sabi ko, okay lang yun. Kung hindi ko.
Na-disappoint
gusto
siya.
niya kasi maging consistent. Sabi ko, hindi naman namin ini-expect. Basta nagugulat lang kami. Pero okay lang. Ayaw namin ma-disappoint siya. Parang ganun.
Oo.
Awesome.
And so, kaya nga hindi test heavy ang New Zealand because we don't want the children, 'di ba, na focusing on that. Kasi kahit alam mo naturally competitive yung mga bata eh. Kahit sabihin mo nagfo-focus sila on it. Like every PAT, like ako nga sinisingil ako ng mga estudyante. Nung term 1 kami nag-PAT, ang busy ko pa, hindi ko pa nabigay feedback lahat. Kasi we're not required to share this with the parents. We can, if hiningi or if we want to, but sometimes hindi kailangan eh. Like, ang kinare ko lang yung mga concerned ako about. So, I'll probably show you how it looks like. So, sandali. Hanap lang ako dito. Individual item report. Ay, scale. Kung ano yung usually share ko nga ito. Sandali Ano ba yung itsura na to sa parents? Hinahanap ko yung itsura ng report kung paano siya lumalabas sa parents. Sandali. Mamaya ako na ipapakita kasi hindi ko ma-navigate ng website. Pero yun nga. So, yeah. Kung meron pa ibang tanong about exams.
Yeah. Any other questions? We are nearly 4. Dito sa Philippines, sa mga dito sa Wellington. Yung mga nasa Pilipinas. Tanghalian na dyan. Any other questions? Mavik or Ken? You were saying?
Yeah. We're going to Groovy. Groovy's here.
Groovy.
Say hello to everybody.
Groovy will be entering grade 5. Will he be taking a placement test for him to be made?
Daming nagsishake ng ulo. Wala na.
Wala.
Sa school,
Jason, experience kami, nagdala ng pagkadami-daming documents galing Pilipinas.
Yeah.
Letter from ganito, ganyan, principal, grade, mark, wala. Pagdating dito, tinanong lang anong address.
Minsan, birth certificate lang. Yun yun. For identity.
Passport lang, passport. Okay na
yun. Passport. Tsaka visa. Kasi kung halimbawa, yun lang.
Yun lang.
Kasi dito, we homeschooled him kasi pandemic. Tapos, in order for him to go back to formal schooling, kailangan pa ng placement test. So, okay. So,
ang gaan ng requirements dito.
Unfortunately, actually, this is what I will say. In the Philippines, education is a privilege more than a right. Unfortunately, here it is a right. And even if the teacher, minsan may high needs na bata, tapos i-consult ka ng principal, sasabihin mo, hindi ko siya masusupport because marami na akong high needs sa class ko. Even if the teacher says that, hindi, the next day, andyan na sa class mo yung bagong bata. So you just rock up at school. That's how admissions work here. Education is a right. You cannot deny any child of the education. Problema lang if they don't have a student visa. So, ibang usapan yon. Pero there are public schools now that accept international students. You just have to pay the international rate. I know, ni-research to ng kapatid ko Berhampore School accepts international students. Ang rate dyan is like 16,000 a year. Sobrang
Times 4
mahal.
ata, times 5, no? Pag ng domestic.
Hindi lang times kasi ang public school, wala kang babayaran.
Sabagay.
Ang babayaran mo lang is yung stationery, yung pang-camp kung may camp,
Or
or
uniform kung may uniform.
Uniform or donation. Even yung donation, hindi ka required magbayad. Pwede ka talaga magpakapal ng mukha. Or sasabihin sa'yo ng school, we can offer you mga payment options, ganyan, na every term ganito lang babayad mo. At meron talagang makapal yung mukha na wala talaga. Ilang beses mo na tinawagan. Walang magawa ang
Tapos
school.
yung donation, may tax refund pa yun.
May tax refund pa yan.
Tax refund pa. So, pupunta ka lang sa may mga school na zoned. Mas stringent requirement ng zone kasi ang tinatanggap nila automatically is kung nakatira ka within the zone, kailangan mo mag-produce ng 2 proof of address within the zone. Pagka hindi ka zoned, minsan tumatanggap sila ng out of zone. Sasabihin, we're gonna put you as part of the ballot. The ballot happens around April. Twice a year yan eh. Anyway, twice a year. Pero kailangan maaga ka. Kasi kung enroll ka for beginning of the year in 2023, dapat nakapag-apply ka na ng zone by August. Alam ko August eh. Kasi ang sorry, may exception kami nag-accept kami ng out of zone students eh. So, masalimuot na proseso, mas mahaba. And then ballot lottery yung out of zone. Pagka may slot, and I won't raise your hopes, pag may slot, then makakapasok yung anak. Tapos meron pang mga priority, like kung may kapatid na, or alumni yung parents sa school na yon, may mga ganun-ganun sila eh. So yun. So, pero normally, you just rock up, and birth certificate, passport, visa status, yun ang importante. And then, yun na.
Ganun kadali. Cecil, may question ka pa?
Thank you everyone.
Very quick question lang. Halimbawa lang, kunyari may anak akong year 5, tapos for some reason, umuwi ako ng Pilipinas for 6 or 8 months kami. So, paano yung pagbalik namin sa New Zealand? Or halimbawa, paano yun yung anak ko? Next year, year 7 or year 5 ulit siya? Or,
hindi. May birthday by the age. So,
by age.
yeah.
So, highly likely na nag-miss siya ng year. Kasi nawala siya ng nag-miss siya ng year. Highly likely yon na hindi ako nag-grade 6 kasi balik ko ng New Zealand, year 7 na ako or something. Birthday lang tinitingnan dito. And may meron din question previously, pwede ko ba i-reclassify yung anak ko? Let's say, I feel hindi siya mature enough for the year level. Pwede ko ba i-request na let's say year 5 siya, mag-year 4 siya ulit? Hindi. Kasi sa Philippines at sa Amerika, pagka hindi mo na-meet yung expectation ng curriculum, in short, kung bagsak ka sa test, bagsak ka ng year level.
Ulit na lang next year na lang ulit.
Oo, dito walang ganun. Basta, birthday tinitingnan. So, kung birthday mo is for year 5 ka. Whether bagsak kang, I'm not gonna use that term, pero kung hindi ka nagpo-perform na bata, they can't keep you in that grade level. You just move up to the next year level. The teacher will meet you where you are. Then will find support for you to make you excel in that curriculum, because it is so important also for them to be emotionally, to be exposed to the same year group. So, birthday lang talaga yung tinitingnan dito.
So, kahit hindi niya na-meet yung standard nung academically, hindi siya pwedeng katulad ng sa atin, magre-repeat ka, grade 5 ka uli. Ganon, hindi ganon.
Is that for primary and intermediate, pagdating sa high school, that's when they have the NCEA.
NCEA.
That's the exam, right? Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's true. Primary and intermediate.
Same din sa sa high school?
Iba
sa high school.
Kasi may NCEA
uulit siya
standard.
pag bumagsak sa exam.
Hindi siya maka-advance in terms dun sa subject na yon.
Subject na yon, yeah. Parang college.
Repeat siya, parang
and
ganun.
then yung pathway will be different. Different ang pathway. So for example, kung math bagsak siya, ang i-encourage is, ang strength niya is language, for example. Doon siya i-encourage to focus. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Which is our next
segue. Yeah, magandang segue for our next topic. Yeah, which is NCA. Yan nga yung National Certificate of Academic Educational Achievement. Yeah, so that will be our topic for next week, which is really good kasi that will support us in understanding yung future education of our children, from college to university.
Tsaka from primary. Paano?
Yeah, from primary.